I was the wayward Catholic. So I went through all my sacraments. I always say that my confirmation saved me, even though I didn't want it, even though I fought it. And so I was 27 before I ever had a full conversion moment, face down on the floor, cried out to God and said, "Take my life. Like, I don't want to live anymore." And he showed up.
If you work for the Catholic Church and want to reclaim time for discipleship, we're here to help. I'm John Konzen. This is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast, your favorite leadership development podcast for Catholic churches. Today's guest is a big one, a good one. She spent 12 years as a Catholic youth minister. She's spoken at Steubenville conferences and World Youth Day in Sydney and Madrid. She's also the founder of a nonprofit that supports survivors of abuse. And now she brings all of that pastoral experience to her work as the National Director of Parish Partnerships for Decided Excellence Catholic Media. Shannon McGraw-Carr, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John.
Well, it's great to have you on here. You know, just full disclosure to our listeners, we recently had a coworker of yours, someone who works at Decided Excellence on the podcast very recently. Just blown away by what you guys do. And obviously it was a great conversation with Isaac the other week. And now we get to have you on here and just break open more the gift that you are to the church.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. But Shannon, your path to this role, I mean, it's not a straight line, you know, youth ministry, speaking, nonprofit work, and now partnering with parishes in this way. So how did you end up here?
Right. How is a path ever straight? You give your plans to God, he laughs and says, "No, I'm going to make you jump over that mountain." And that's what happens, right?
Absolutely.
I was in youth ministry and then left youth ministry, started the nonprofit. I was doing Hopeful Hearts Ministry, still have Hopeful Hearts Ministry. We're in our 15th year and we can discuss more of that later. But I was full on, so excited, actually on a path of having more hopeful hearts around the country. And then COVID happened. That's what happened. And I will admittedly say I was divorced. And I'll throw in a little tag, have written a book on annulments about to be published by Ave Maria Press in 2027. Very excited about that. But in this process, I was divorced and living on my own and trying to work this nonprofit, and COVID happens. And I, in all honesty, was broke and needed a job and wanted to keep the nonprofit going. I had so many reaching out, needing to talk, having memories come back, etc. And I started looking and, by God's grace, found this opportunity with Decided Excellence in the Catholic Church. And I thought, Lord, I mean, do you still want me? I'm a divorced Catholic. I am trying to go through the annulment process and going through all of this, but I felt shame, right? I felt that sense of vulnerability and embarrassment of wanting that, but yet I was so entrenched and involved in the Catholic Church already. I missed youth ministry. I missed all of that. And they were like, "No, we want you." I had never sold a thing in my life, never done anything like that before, and I created 3 magazines in the area, and I hear myself a little bit, so I apologize. And I just started working with them and never wanted to go back. It helped me build up Hopeful Hearts even more. We never had to fall. We never had to stop. But then Dee has supported everything that I'm doing with Hopeful Hearts. And I suddenly found myself 6 years later still doing the mission and finding that it all kind of encompasses one another in many ways.
Yeah. And I hear you say that COVID happened. And so you kind of pivoted. And so I'm going to throw this out to you. In a time when digital evangelization is kind of a big buzzword right now, and especially in a time of COVID, you would think somebody would pivot to social media or whatever it is, but you pivoted to magazines.
Right.
So just tell me a little bit about it. Because I think most people think digital evangelization, we need to be on social media, people talk about how, maybe newspapers aren't going to be around in a while. Tell me what works about a
Well,
magazine, this direction
absolutely.
you've gone.
Right, right. I'm gonna say, even having running in national, international nonprofit, I had to get somebody else to come in and really step in and do the social media part, right?
Hmm.
I felt myself get stuck in that. And I think there's so many people like me that get like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to find what I need to know or read a story in this realm, right? Like that's meant to be a quick, get your attention, whatever type of thing. I love that niche, magazine aspect. It's my market. It's talking about a family that I know that lives in my neighborhood or that I've seen, at mass. We're in the same section every Sunday, but I have no idea who they are or what their story is, right? Because you just maybe haven't been in the same circle within the ministries or something to that effect. And just being able to hold that. And then there's also the feedback that we get, the families that are in it, the parishes that, the parishioners that receive it, they love holding it. They love being able to be involved and to see the before and after of a parish event, or let's say they just had a retreat and being able to see and read that story. It makes people famous within their community, right? And there is a difference to still having that niche in your hand written aspect.
Yeah, and what one of the things it does is it does borrow a lot, just all the psychology that goes behind successful communication. Something as simple as smiling pictures, or I should say pictures of people that are smiling. And
Right.
and being able to put that in front of people, and it makes the parish feel alive. I think we'd be
Mhm.
maybe surprised, maybe not, if you go on a parish website and you look at whatever picture they have of their church, it's probably the empty church or the church building,
Right.
instead of putting in front of them the smiling faces of the people that are members of the parish that show the life of the
The
parish. And
life. The
yeah,
life.
absolutely. And you
Yeah.
guys give a real tool for the parish to communicate the living reality of their church community.
Exactly. And I love that you just said that. It's just, we love it shares their personality and the life of what's happening. And then it gets into the hands of maybe those that haven't been in a few years. Maybe somebody was like me and got divorced and feel shame from that and feel like maybe they're not welcome back. And then suddenly they receive this magazine and there's an article in there, by Bishop Barron or maybe by their own priest that's saying, we want you back. Here's the truth. This is, we're meant to be here to help support and guide you and lead you. And then that brings people back. We had one magazine out of St. Louis called The Way, first edition. Father Tom Pastorius wrote a wonderful article on wanting, his people to come back. And he ended up having four people that he knows for certain that had come back in through the sacraments to say, I didn't know that I was welcome back, and came back into the church after one magazine.
It's so okay. You just named something that I've been ruminating in the back of my mind for a long time. And where I'm working is a lot of rural parishes. So
Mhm.
rural ministry means that the pastor does everything. And
Right.
occasionally he's lucky to have a handful, maybe, of people on the staff that help him. But what comes up is that there's all these niche ministry needs. You've got,
Yeah.
yes, youth ministry, you've got, yes, faith formation, but then there's ministry to different, not even just grief support, different
Mhm.
areas: a broken marriage, a death in the family, the
Mhm.
death of a young person in the family. There's all these niche areas, and there we feel this need and we don't know how to respond because the only thing we can think of is starting a ministry to that group. Think about
Right.
even ministry to the homebound, right? It would be such a gift to have enough people that could go to the homebound in our community. But
Mhm.
if those people aren't there yet or haven't been woken up, you've got now this magazine which goes to the homebound, which
Mhm.
reaches them with the message of the gospel, the love and the faces of their community, but also becomes a real way to then share the need of the homebound with all the other parishioners who are called to respond to that need. So it kind of it goes
Exactly.
both ways and fits that need.
Right. And I love you bring up that that example because my mother-in-law, God bless her, is homebound. She's immunocompromised. She can't go to mass anymore. She has to have the Eucharist brought to her. And she has that magazine beside her chair. It's like her lifeline to be like, what's still happening? Like, I'm still involved. I'm still here. And she wants to know what's happening within the church. And so there's many different levels. I also have people that ask, well, the new, millennials or the new generations, they don't want to read it. Well, that is actually false. We are finding that those new young families are wanting to be in it. Obviously, because, getting their face out anywhere and their story out, but we have so much for the kids, how to pray with your family, a kids corner, you know, little sections on saints, stuff, things like that that give them more that they could read with their child. They can have something laying around that their child could pick up too, and maybe be able to flip through and find something as well. And that's the kind of feedback we're getting even from young families.
Yeah, so that speaks a little bit into it. I want to invite you to talk more about that and break that open where I want to go because you spent 12 years as a youth minister, in the trenches before any of this started. And so
Mhm.
you've seen and worked alongside families most hand hearing what they're asking for. And
Right.
so what's that decade of more than a decade of being in the trenches with the families, with teenagers, with parish staff alongside parish staff? What has
Mhm.
that time taught you what parishioners need that they're maybe not getting in other areas?
Right. Well, as a youth minister, I recognized that it was the teens that seemed to, they came in, they would do their confirmation retreat. When they were on retreat, when they were forced, to seclude and then be a part of, and they needed that sense of belonging, that sense of being heard, and knowing that they're not alone in their anxieties and their worries and all the things. That's what suddenly created this bond, and they wanted to keep coming. They wanted to come to Wednesday night, youth group. They wanted to come to all the other events. It was the parents that were maybe not coming back to mass, right? You get those parents that are like, you need your sacraments, but we're not necessarily going to go every Sunday. And so then suddenly you had the youth that was wanting to bring those parents back, and you started to see more and more engagement as an overall family when you had a really strong, vibrant youth ministry. I could talk about youth ministry all day. Vibrant, strong youth ministry. And I'm going to call this out because I was very proud of him. We have a new priest. He's about a year in, and they were doing First Communion Sunday, and it was a smaller group, but he asked them all, yeah, who do you want to go to heaven? Everybody raised their hand. Do you want your parents to go to heaven? Yes, they want their parents to go to heaven. Do you go to mass every Sunday? And it was like, oh, everybody was like, oh my goodness. And no, none of the kids raised their hand. So it was a direct message in a loving way. He said, I'm not trying to call everybody out, but if we are sincere with ourselves, this is the place to be to get Jesus. It gets you to heaven. And I just love that. And what I'm seeing with young families, I'm seeing this. I have a 28, or 27-year-old, don't want to age him too fast, 28 in September, and 25-year-old. And more of these young families, they want that traditional. They're the ones that I was their youth minister to. And they're like, no, I want the sacraments. I want my kids to be involved, or I want to homeschool, or I want to do all the things Catholic. And these new generations are wanting to come back and wanting to be more involved, um, and be, in that realm. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I hear that story. I think of a good friend of mine, a friend of the podcast, Father Travis Karate. He's our vocations director here in the Sioux City Diocese. And one of the things that he says when he talks to priests about, I wish this was happening, wish this was happening, I wish this was happening. And he says, it doesn't take a whole new program. It doesn't take a lot of work to just preach with conviction.
Uh-huh.
No more benign homilies about God loves you, which is true. It is true, but it's so true and it's so said that it's missed. But instead, a homily that invites you to convict yourself of
Mhm.
your need for God, like that's
Right.
just a different style of preaching. And it's not hard, but it's, at the same time, well, I should say maybe it is hard, but it's simple. It's simple, even if not easy. It also requires being willing to have a few tough conversations, I imagine.
Right. And I think that, in writing this book on annulments with Monsignor Stephen Callahan, he's the judicial vicar out of San Diego Diocese. There is that fine line, right? We want to be truthful, and we want to have that hard conversation of, why aren't you coming mass every Sunday, or this is right or this is wrong. However, we also need to be pastoral. So we need to be open enough, of loving and pastoral enough to say, yes, I'm saying this truth, but I also believe with all that I am, of how much God loves you, how much hope there is, and to bring in that sense of love and care and support. So this is why we want you here, because I want you in heaven. I want you to, receive Jesus. I want you to have all of these things, instead of the judgment of, you're not doing that, and so now you need to. Well, nobody's going to want to follow along with that. Then they get upset. The church doesn't want me. They called me out, and I'm out, right? And so, sorry, I could go
No, no,
on
no,
and on
you're
about
fine. No, I'm so glad you had people that spoke that truth into your life, because obviously what
that.
you're doing is such a gift to the church. You are a gift to the church. And I want you to continue to hold that thought, because at the end, I want you to invite us to follow however we can for when that book comes out, because I personally know
Thanks.
probably 5 people off the top of my head involved in ministry in various capacities that could use it. And I
Oh,
want to have you back on the podcast when it launches to tell everybody about
okay.
it and deeply.
I
So
will. Yeah.
let's come back to that right at the end, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so you work with parishes all over the country. You've seen
Mhm.
what this growth looks like, this story of this priest who began preaching with more conviction and clarity.
Mhm.
And so you've seen what that growth looks like. You've also probably seen what busyness just for the sake of busyness looks like.
Mm.
And they're not the same thing. So what's the difference, and how do you bring that out in the work that you do?
Absolutely. I mean, busyness for busyness, I think we all see that if you've worked at a parish, not calling anybody out specific, but yes, we could get caught up in, all the details of what we need to do for all the different sacraments, etc. What we're doing with the magazine is that we're inviting a parish in parishes to say, what is our desire? A true parish's desire, obviously, is to have everybody home, is to have everybody. The mass is not complete unless we're all there, right? And so the magazine gives each parish their own, own personality, own way of telling their story, of saying, this is how we feel that we want to draw them back in. And so, we do most of the work in doing that. We do the design, we do all the hard part, right? The design, the editing, making sure that it's all in line with the USCCB and all right, with the Catholic Church. We do the printing and mailing it off. But the team gets to say, have that idea, have that longing. Every parish team has a longing and an idea of, I really wish that we could, bring in the young people in our community. We know we're not getting them, you know, work with our team on finding articles that are already written, maybe to be able to, pursue each month of what it is, that story or that idea that they want to bring forth. So just it's different in each level or state, even. Like, you're in, where are you again? So,
I'm over in Iowa, the Sioux
Iowa.
City
Okay.
Diocese.
Sioux City. There you go. We're talking to some parishes over there. But,
I'm so happy to hear that.
we have, I have one. It's Bighorn Catholic in Wyoming, and he is the priest that has these 2 parishes, and it's very, very rural. He is the one that does it, but he is so amazing because his heart is like, I know that, and we found out that there's all these other Catholics or Catholic homes, but they're just not maybe registered at that parish, and so he wants to reach them all. And with each edition, he does it quarterly. And with each edition, he's got an idea of this is my goal, right? And this is what I want to do. And whether he gives us the information or whether he works with our team to find out how we can best help support that goal. And that's how he gets that out. And it's beautiful. I hope that answered your
No,
question
that's a
about.
great one. I actually want to lean into that because I think one of the disconnects that happens in a lot of parishes is you have a pastor who is on fire, who has a deep conviction about something, but they don't need to bring it up. Don't know how to bring it about.
Mhm.
And for me, the first place that I start with any parish that I'm working with is um, giving voice to the desire that God has placed in their heart. And I heard the seeds of that conversation in
Mhm.
what you just said, which is
Mhm.
that I want to do this thing. Now help me.
Right.
How do you draw? I think that that's a useful exercise. How do you draw that out of a pastor when you're trying to identify
Mhm.
what is our next message that we need to put out there? How do you help them to give voice to that vision?
Right. Well, I mean, not all of them are where the pastor is the one doing it. I think he might be the only pastor doing the magazine himself because
Mhm.
of how
Well, they're
of the
busy.
size of it. Yeah, the size of it. But I know that if a team gets together, or our parish liaison, because we always have just one person we work with at the parish, and if they say, this month, the month of May, it's about Mary. We want to. This is kind of our heart's desire. We want to focus on Mary. Do you have any articles in regards to XYZ in regards to Mary or Mary in prayers or prayer intentions, etc. Right? And so we have, articles from Ascension Press. We've got great writers on our team that we do a blog called Prime Soil. I don't know if Isaac could mention that or not. And, I write for them, and we have beautiful authors. We have priests that write for us in Prime Soil. And so you can pull from that. So there's many different areas in which if the team comes up with an idea, and of course whatever they write, by all means, because some parishes and some, you have great writers amongst your parish, and they submit to the parish liaison to submit to the magazine. That always works great too. But if that idea comes and they're like, well, we just don't know what to write, or we don't know if we have that, we can say, look, this is a list of articles, or these are a list of prayers, or these are a list of what we have, and to help them kind of get that direction going. Yeah.
And I love that because one of the realities of Catholic ministry right now, of parish work, is that you have we are stepping into a new age of apostolates, right? I think Monsignor James Shea, he published that book, From the You Mary, From Christendom to Apostolic Mission. And one of the
Mhm.
realities is that this is a time where the laity, there's a revival happening, and they're trying to respond to the call to use their particular geniuses, their particular skill sets to build up the church. And
Mhm.
so for the parish that has this desire to grow, to go out, you may not have all the skills on your team to do that, but I guarantee if you look around, there is an apostolate that fits your need and can help
Mhm.
you so that you don't have to, quote unquote, do it all. You know, I
Absolutely.
think you guys have found a real place where you step in. And so, you've worked with a lot of parishes, when you're in it, you have conversations with pastors or staff members all the
Mhm.
time. Let's say that they're listening to this and they're thinking, yeah, this all resonates. This is something that sounds really exciting to me. What are you looking for if you're having that conversation with them and trying to decide whether they're ready to launch into something like this?
Right. Absolutely. I think one thing I want to address, maybe a most common reaction or response that we get. What I'm finding, because I work a lot with the priests, I go to the priest conferences, I have lunch, dinner with them, I talk to them. Their heart's desire is, I want to evangelize. I want to spread as wide and bring everybody in. And I love that. It's the greatest gift I have in this job, is seeing that and having these conversations with these priests. I think where it comes about, and I know that their team wants it just as much, but the team then, whatever level they're at within the parish, coordination, is they feel maybe overwhelmed, they have a lot on their plate, oh my gosh, now Father wants to do this. How am I going to add this? I don't have, I can't write, or I don't have the skills for this, or I don't have the time. I'm just putting that out there. And I think it's a matter of, if everybody puts their heart and prayer into this and says, what is our true goal? To remind ourselves of what is our goal? Why are we so busy? Why are we doing all of these things? It's to help bring people into the sacraments. It's to help bring them to the Eucharist and to bring them into our family every Sunday for Mass. So if we all can say yes to that, then as we prepare and you start working with our team to get out that quarterly, bi-monthly, or monthly magazine, when that starts going out, you start seeing other parishioners come forward and say, I love this. I love to write. How can I help? How can I be a part of? And that's what I've started to see, is that their team grows. And somebody made the comment, in dealing with volunteers, it's more work to deal with volunteers. If they're turning in an article, all you do is you turn in that article. If you want it, you read it, and you're like, this will be good. You upload it into our system, cut and paste. That takes a minute. We can edit it. We have quality control, and that's how it is. My whole point is once you start something, if you could just port forward that extra little time, it's like 10 hours for that first edition, 6 hours a month for any edition beyond that, you'll start seeing that the community starts coming together to want more and more voice.
You must have an ocean of patience, because if someone came to me and said, it's too much work to work with all those volunteers, I'm going to slap them.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You're begging for volunteers in all these areas, and you're worried that too many volunteers are going to come in. I won't know what to do.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
that would be a
It's a
great
great
problem
problem to
to
have.
solve. But that's the truth, though, right? Is that what you're offering is a solution that is beautiful, and beautiful things bear momentum of their own. They start to begin to take life of their own, and there's an apostolic messiness that kind of happens in this age. But goodness gracious, I mean, that's what we want, is people coming in. One of my questions I always throw out to parish leaders is, then it's to surface a need, but it's, hey, if 30 people came into your parish and were like, we're ready, we want to be dialed in, put us to work, would you know what to do with them?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. And
Mhm.
what it does is it surfaces this need to think differently about the ministry. Instead of just triaging all the time and just trying to survive, what would it look like to build a parish that has momentum and is able to take those people and launch them forward? And
Mhm.
you're providing an answer to this. Catholic Ministry Professionals provides an answer to this. This is what apostolates do for
Mhm.
parishes that are ready to go on mission.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's important and I love that you have this podcast, because it's important to bring up these hard truths and hard questions, right? And if I know that we all have the same heart, it's just sometimes I think we can get bogged down by the mundane or the menial
Well,
tasks. Yeah.
and even just the fear of friction in the workplace, right?
Right.
If I was working on a parish staff, I probably wouldn't say all these things to the rest of the staff, right? But I have a podcast, so I could say
Right.
it.
That's right.
You're the founder of the Hopeful Hearts Ministry. You've worked with
Mhm.
survivors of abuse. You've stood on stages at World Youth Day. It'd be silly for us not to lean into the experience you have, this wisdom that you've gained over years, and just insights from
Mhm.
working with so many people, and now mailing magazines to Catholic homes across the country. Is there
Mhm.
a moment? Is there a story, a scripture? Like, what's the thing that captures your heart for why all of this work, all of it matters?
And this is something I say when I speak to priests. I was the wayward Catholic. Because of the abuse I went through as a very young child, and then that carried on, and my parents didn't know, right? So I went through all my sacraments. I always say that my confirmation saved me, even though I didn't want it, even though I fought it. And Saint Bernadette was funny that I even remembered who my confirmation saint was at a time where I was a reluctant, 13-year-old teenager. And so I was 27 before I ever had a full conversion moment, face down on the floor, cried out to God and said, "Take my life. Like, I don't want to live anymore." And he showed up, and I showed up, and I knew God, and I have, thank God, I may have kind of dipped and ebbed and flowed throughout the way from 27 to now 52. Yes, I just said my age on this
You're a
podcast.
brave person. Good for you.
Um, but never went back to not having him and not having that relationship and that faith. And he called me right back into the Catholic Church. And I remember saying, "Lord, you don't ever tell God anything, but you try." And you say, I said, "Lord, if you want me back in the Catholic Church, then I want you to help me change it." Um, because I felt like there was just something missing at the time, right? And that's when I was immediately called into youth ministry. I won't go into the whole story. Called into the youth ministry within 3 years, was doing a huge parish in Texas youth ministry. Met with some great people that I was youth ministers with in Houston that were at Franciscan. And then suddenly I'm speaking on stage, and I was so scared to ever do that. But God gives you, that grace and that power. Then at World Youth Day, and all these things start blowing up. And my whole heart has always been to try to reach those that were me, that had fallen, that was mad at God, that was mad at the church, that was mad at just in general, didn't feel worthy, didn't feel good enough, didn't feel like they had a voice of any kind. And I think that is why my ministry, the ministry, I should say, it's not mine, it's God's ministry. That's why I believe the ministry and what I do with DE kind of works and ebbs and flows so much together as well. Even me writing the books, because our whole mission, our whole goal as a overall is that evangelization, is to reach those that are not with us in the pews, in mass, in receiving Christ, right? That's the overall goal of our heart. And, with DE, does it mean that it costs money for pay our designers and to pay our team and to, and to try to get businesses to be sponsors and then all the things? That's life. And that's something that we all have to understand. And because that kind of hits on that final part of what parishes go through, their budget, and who's tithing and who's not tithing, and all the things. Like, I get it, that it's a hard thing to do. And so now we have to find that balance of, you know keeping our eye on what God wants and what's most important. And God wants to find, he's opened up these opportunities for us to have a way of reaching his people, right?
Mm.
And that's what I think is beautiful about it. Yeah.
I love that. The soul of the apostolate, right?
Mhm.
That great seminal work on just what it is to step out is that all of the fruit is going to pour forth from the interior life that you live. What that means is, all the struggles, all the terrible things that happened in the past, poor decisions that we made or others made that affected us, all of that stuff, when we invite Christ into it to fill that space, to fill that void, to transform it, to heal it, then when we work from there, when we allow that to be filled by Christ and to pour out, that the fruit comes from there. So yeah, when you say it's not my ministry, it's God's ministry, like, yes, but also through you, and I love that you named that. I just that voice, that phrase, I want, Lord, whatever it is, I want you to help me change it. If I'm going to work for the church, I want you to help me change it. And in the back of my mind for years, I've always had, when I was working in parishes, there were so many things that were frustrating about it. So many things that were frustrating because there's just the gap between the training I was given, my coworker was given, my pastor was given, and the work we were trying to do. And I've always said, since I transitioned into Catholic ministry professionals, is that, Lord, if I could just move the needle 1%, like, that would be a good work for my life. And that's behind so much of what I do, is I desire to feed and to help our pastors, to help our priests, to help those people that are co-workers in the vineyard with me, and also the parishioners who desire these good things for the church that they participate in. And so I love you putting voice to that, because God has done a powerful thing in you. There's a powerful thing here, and it's pouring forth from the life of faith that you live with Him, the relationship that you've grounded yourself in, and it is pouring forth out into the world. So thank you for saying yes to that call, even when scary.
Thank you. But everything that is, I mean, scary, I mean, anytime that you feel God calling you to something, you have to step into that vulnerability. It's gonna come with fear just because you don't know the outcome. It's about the hard aspect of trusting God, saying, "Okay, well, He's called me to this. Obviously, clearly with Him, He's gonna bring me through it." So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I imagine Peter in the boat when, even when he says to Jesus, like, "Fine, if it's you, tell me to walk to you." And Jesus is like, "All right, step out of the boat." And I'm sure Peter's first thought was, "Let me check with the diocese to see if there's a handbook that teaches me how to walk on water." No, he didn't have a handbook.
Oh,
He just said,
yeah.
"Okay, this is the next step. I'll take it."
Mhm.
And that,
Yeah.
and then he had to discern, and then he got scared again, and then he fell, and then his next discernment was, "Lord, save me."
Right, right. And that's the ebb and flow, right?
Absolutely.
Trusting and then falling and then, you know,
Mm-hmm.
bring me back. Yeah.
Bring me back. What, Shannon, this has been a great conversation. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate the time that you've taken with us. I do want to give you a moment. Let's talk about your book a little bit. Just paint the picture
Yeah.
there, and let us know about when it's going to drop again.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell this quick story. We were at an evangelical Catholic conference, and I was meeting with a priest that I used to speak with at Steubenville youth conferences. He knew me as Shannon Dietz was my name. I have 2 books written under that name. That's where I used to speak with Steubenville. And there's many reasons won't go into all that. It's in the book of the marriage after, so long ending and then getting annulled. So I'm in this conversation with this priest and Monsignor Stephen and all these like 10 or 11 other priests. They're drinking a little bourbon, smoking a little cigar because it's their retreat time, right? So they're off. But they're all listening and they're all discussing this sad aspect of this one, when the reality is that there are going to be divorces and things happen and then the annulment process. And father and I both said, I wish we could write a book. I just really wish we could write a book because both of our hearts connected in wanting to just tell the truth, but in a pastoral way and to bring people back in and to answer questions. Because even some of the priests admitted, I didn't go to Rome for, canon law. Like, I don't know really truly all the law, right? Or I don't know it specifically, etc. And so they were like, yeah, it'd be great to have a resource. And so we were like, let's write a book. And the next morning I woke up and thought, do you think he really meant yes? And I started walking to our booth and some priests passed me and they were like, when's that book coming out? I'm like, we just came up with the idea last night. And so God willing, God again, it took us a year. And then by God's grace, we got in with Ave Maria Press. And so we just signed and it'll be released 2027. And it's meant to be a resource. It's Catholic annulments, seeking truth, finding healing. And it's meant to be for lay people and for pastors and parish staff who lead people through that process as well.
Yeah,
A
I've had.
question and answer. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. Well, it forms the leaders as well as the laity,
correct.
right? And
Correct.
uh, I have had multiple people in my life, coworkers, friends, who have gotten divorced and then just been told in some manner of spiritual formation, you can't receive
Hmm.
communion anymore, and that was the end of the conversation. And there's just so much more than just like
Hmm.
one decision in one moment. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I just always encourage them, hey, reach out to a different priest,
Hmm.
have another conversation, talk to some more people, and this is going to
Hmm.
be, I think, a balm for people's souls. So
Yeah.
thank you for
We
writing it.
answered those questions directly and we have many different scenarios, everything that where you could go to the page, can I receive communion if blah, 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 but some of it has to be broken down, of course. And so then we try to very eloquently and in a way that could be understood, break down well, if you're doing this, this is why you can't, and this is what needs to be done, etc.
Yeah.
So
So, friends, listeners, please pay attention, in the next year as this book comes out. And I want you on the podcast to talk about it when it does.
absolutely, I would love that. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Well,
Mhm.
Shannon, where can listeners go to connect with you or learn more about what Decided Excellence is doing in parishes?
Absolutely. Well, I would love to speak with you, your parish, whoever. You can reach me at SCAR, so SCAR, you should remember that, it's 2 R's, so SCAR at decidedexcellence.com. Or if you could also find me on hopefulheartsministry.org, and that I think my cell phone's on there. If you go to our website, decidedexcellence.com, I believe they also have a number for me on there. So Decided Excellence, hopefulheartsministry.org, SCAR at decidedexcellence.com.
Awesome. Well, Shannon McGraw-Carr, thank you for being on the podcast.
Absolutely.
All
Thank
right.
you.
And thank you, listeners, for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, don't let it be just another good idea. Text it to a priest or a friend in ministry and start the conversation today. And with that, we'll see you in the vineyard.